we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time ever listening to the podcast, welcome. If it's whatever number of times you've been listening to me, thank you for listening. Welcome back. You know, I couldn't do it without everyone's support out there, and you know, I appreciate everyone who's reached out and, you know, suggested a topic or anything like that. We'd love to hear from you guys. You know, if you ever want to reach the podcast, you can always tweet us. You can always check us out on Instagram at the Bigmark Podcast or at the Bigmark Pod. And you can support the podcast too at our Patreon, patreon.com/the Bigmark Podcast. I've been doing a lot of these solo ones lately. I told you I was talking about this last time too, but you know, in preparing for this week's episode, I was kind of thinking, you know, what am I going to do? Maybe hoping grab another guest very soon, but you know, I was kind of thinking in the vein of a lot of my favorite podcasters out there, you know, your Theo Vaughns, your Bill Burrs, like even you know, someone who's potentially fallen from grace, Crystalia, you know, they all kind of have that stream of consciousness in their podcast. They don't necessarily have guests on all the time, and rarely do they even have topics when they're talking too. So, you know, it was one of those things where when I first was thinking about starting the podcast, you know, do I want to do that stream of consciousness? Most of these solo ones have had specific topic. I've done a lot of work trying to actually, you know, get the notes down for the topic and do all that stuff, which is great. You know, but again, you know, I felt like, hey, let's give that whole kind of stream of consciousness thing a shot. And I mean, you know, I don't like to think of myself as a guy who always wants to just talk about himself and do this. I try to actively, you know, in conversations not do that. And I'm sorry if I ever feel like I'm only talking about myself. I feel like one of the worst things, and I mean, in this situation, kind of this is all I can do is talk about myself, which is, you know, it is what it is. And thanks for listening. If you're still there. Anyway, but, you know, it's like, I don't want to be the guy who's always talking about himself, not letting anyone else get a word in edgewise and do their thing and you know, all this stuff. So it's like, I always felt when I wanted to start the podcast, it wasn't necessarily just to talk about myself. It's more about the guest. That's why I want to set it up that way and everything. But again, you know, I just wanted to kind of give it a shot. And I think, you know, I'm sure a lot of people out there strive to not, you know, seem self-centered and do all that stuff. And I know in the past when at least personally, when I felt like I was maybe guiding a conversation the wrong way or talking about a topic that maybe no one else really cares about, you know, it's something that you go, oh man, like I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I gave the other person a shot. Or what do they think about me now? Do they think I'm a selfish person or whatever? So, you know, I always try and make sure I'm an active listener and doing all that good stuff. But, you know, it's one of those things where you can only kind of keep trying. I guess it's good that maybe that I'm aware of it maybe. But again, a little bit interesting in you know, setting up today's pod, but you know, kind of want to talk about, you know, maybe what's going on in life and this and that, and, you know, stuff that maybe even would usually come up with a guest, but, you know, it's just you and me today. So, you know, whether you're driving your car or listening at home, you know, again, thank you. And, you know, you guys keep me going. And a big thing when I wanted to start this podcast, I was thinking like, this is a way to keep yourself accountable for things, right? Like I've talked about doing yoga in the past, meditation and things like that, and said, you know, I have the podcast, I have all you guys listening to keep me going, to keep me motivated and keep me pushing. And, you know, I kind of feel like lately I haven't really been keeping up with some of those promises I made to you guys too. And that's kind of, you know, been weighing on me. And it's been a weird kind of maybe start to this July, I'd say. I don't know if it's some kind of wild astrology doings or something like that, some kind of rising or sign or some type of moon thing. But it's just kind of been funky lately, and I kind of feel like, maybe I haven't made the right decisions or haven't been working hard enough here and there at work or wherever, or even here with you guys. I always want to strive to make the best podcast I can. And, I don't want to feel like I'm going to let you guys down in any way, but, it's just been funky. And, I've been kind of like, walking around the house and lately in the past few days, to be honest with you, I've kind of been feeling a little bit better. I don't know what really changed too much. I think, again, we have habits and we have all these commitments we want to make and we want to keep up. And now all of a sudden with restrictions, like, so for everyone listening who doesn't know, restrictions in Ontario are going to start opening up on this Friday. What is it? July 16th, which is going to be super awesome. But it's almost like, holy shit, like now everything's just blowing open and there's no like kind of like lead into it. And, I've always considered myself a social person. I love my friends, just like my family. I love being around people. I love doing things with people, bars, concerts, all that good stuff. But because I've been so deprived of it lately, like I feel like it's not overwhelming in a sense, but it's just that kind of feeling of like all of a sudden, boom, now you have to do stuff because we haven't done anything. And I love it. And I love seeing my friends again. It's been super awesome. Being able to get together like slowly but surely, with some friends. And even then, like, everyone's starting to get vaccinated in Ontario, and everyone's kind of been, doing our best to continue to follow the rules. But it's like, fuck it, now we're here, let's party. And, it's almost like, oh fuck, like, do I remember how to party almost? Like, do I remember how to like be with people and not be fucking weird and like say all the weird shit I've come up with over being like isolated and just like, doing your own thing. Again, I'm thankful for my job and thankful for everyone in my life that I've been able to, continue some type of connection and do all that stuff. But, again, it's just, and I feel like this goes around the board too, right? Like, all of a sudden getting back and seeing people, there's like maybe like a little second or two of awkward silence where you can both think like, all right, how do we do this again? And, it's really interesting. Things that used to be automatic and were easy for some people. Again, I totally understand, there's a lot of introverted people that truly, have potentially been absorbing this time like amazing and just like, doing their own thing and loving life, and they're dreading this time probably even more than I am. But, I've always felt like I've been extroverted, and I've I did my own Myers-Briggs questionnaire once, and for anyone listening who doesn't know what a Myers-Briggs test is, it's basically it's a personality inventory test essentially. So kind of a series of questions essentially lead you to a certain category of personality. So there's 4 categories. So I am an ENFJ. So it's extroverted, I think the N is actually neurotic. Here, hold on. I'm just gonna grab my phone here because I'm solo. I don't have my boy CPUP to look this stuff up, but I want to for you guys. So again, these four personality categories, if you will, fall along each section for my Myers-Briggs identification, if you will. it's these 4 categories essentially along this line. So the Myers-Briggs, again, is an introspective self-report questionnaire indicating differing psychological preferences and how people perceive the world and make decisions. So, again, it's kind of pretty close to, almost astrology in the sense where, people look at these categories and they see, oh, I'm an INFP or whatever, all these different ENFJ, INTP, and all these different categories that you fall into, and you think, oh yeah, you read the description, and don't get me wrong, this is like research based. There's like relative scientific approach. Not that astrology doesn't have its own validities, but this is kind of the new wave version, if you will, and a lot of it was actually based off of Carl Jung's philosophies, it seems like, which is really interesting because he used to have his own kind of personality categories. But anyway, I'm just trying to find this. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, I'm just trying to figure this out here before I get too off track. This is annoying. So essentially the test attempts to assign 4 categories: introversion or extroversion, sensing or intuition. So I guess the N for me is intuition, thinking or feeling, judging or perceiving. 1 letter for each category is taken to produce a 4-letter test result. So anyway, sorry to get too off track there, but like I said, I'm an ENFJ, and the tests essentially that I took was online, and obviously there's a lot of bias in it. It would be interesting to have a professional potentially do the test and ask certain questions that I wasn't queued up for and know all, Again, that's always the hardest thing with psychological studies, is that if the person knows what you're trying to accomplish with the study, like even subconsciously, they might answer questions in a way that they potentially wouldn't. And again, if anything, this ENFJ designation that I give myself is how I perceive myself, and that could be potentially different depending on who you talk to, right? So, and there's moments in life too where you're not feeling so extroverted, or you're feeling a little bit more introvert, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, but like I said, I feel like, I definitely consider myself extroverted and stuff. And I mean, I like to go up on stage and play music and stuff. So I guess that could be perceived as extroverted, but in some senses, it's also a little bit isolating too, because now you have separated yourself from everyone in the room, which is kind of an interesting concept in itself, as far as relating to introversion. But and the artist, that is. But yeah, again, I think maybe the past year and a half, or at least, a year and a half now, it's been since we first started getting into lockdowns and stuff. I guess it's like, man, maybe it kind of wore on me a little bit more than I thought. Stuff happening with my band earlier near the beginning of the lockdown really sucked too. Not being able to play any music at all, not being able to go and see friends. And again, I was busy with work, so I'm always going to be grateful with that. But then I started a new position, more of a sales gig, and that was like right at the beginning of like the kind of second big lockdown, back in May or whatever. But excuse me. But again, it's like, we try and trudge along and put our best faces on and just keep pushing and keep moving ahead. And at least personally, I've lived a life where there's times, and when I was more serious about sports and things, where I just sloughed things off, and I had that that ability to focus and not let, outer pressures in life kind of affect my performances and things. But again, this is life. This isn't, a sport. This isn't something that's already, one step removed from life. This is what it is. It's life, and it's not something that you can just ignore and just try and put your head down and keep trudging through. It's something that you have to keep on top of yourself. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep, true to yourself. Again, this isn't like an overly hard discipline thing, but this is a little bit me talking to myself too, in the sense where it's like, everyone wants to honor their commitments. They want to be true to their word. Everyone strives to do that anyway. And I think we put others way more ahead of ourselves as far as the triage or whatever the hierarchy, as far as what's gonna fall away, and when the decision's actually made. Am I gonna choose myself, or am I gonna choose my obligation or the other person or whatever? And I think we probably had a lot of time to potentially choose ourselves, but when there were so many unknowns happening, and we didn't know how long the lockdowns were going to last, and how seriously affected people could have really been. And there's so much more information coming out, or so much more information available today, where I feel like so many more people are at least a little bit more comfortable with what's going on. I think that now is the time to shift focus a little bit and, recommit to ourselves. And I need to recommit to myself too, and get back to my meditation, get back to the yoga, which I talked about, in our yoga podcast, right? Like, and shout out to my brother, John Harley. He was, him and I were talking the other day, and he's becoming a yoga teacher, and he wants to, help out big time. And I love it. And I want to do some of his classes. I want to keep going. And he's been a great push. And, honestly, I was talking to him the other day, because, again, with things opening a little bit, we're starting to have outdoor gigs, music gigs. So him and I are going to be doing a couple shows at Flat Rock Cellars out in Jordan. Shout out Flat Rock Cellars. We've been jamming and just preparing and rehearsing and everything. And I was really honored to hear, he has lofty aspirations and lofty, he foresees our podcast doing big things, and it really meant a lot to me. Thank you so much, John. He kind of opened my eyes to, there's not too many podcasts kind of coming out of Hamilton right now. And, I love this city so much. It's been, my home, my entire life. I left only briefly to go to school, and I came right back. And, I loved every minute in London, but, Hamilton's always been my home, and it's been a place where I felt like I need to stand up for it sometimes, and I need to, and I've also been so proud of it, and been able to show people sides of the city that maybe they've never seen. And, I want to keep honoring that. And there's so many interesting people, and we have such a cool art scene. We have awesome sports. And again, that's what we talk about here, right? Is from sports to psychedelics and everything in between. So, it was amazing to hear. And, this is the thing that you miss, right? From seeing your friends all the time, and, or at least being able to see them face to face and get all the little, niceties out of the way, and just chat real. And, again, it meant a lot to me to hear. And I really hope I keep pushing, like John was saying, we were at our 30th episode the other day, which is awesome. Like, we're still pushing, we're not going anywhere. I'm loving it. It's fun. It's a great challenge to come up with things to do. This is awesome. I love doing this right now with you guys. And, I hope you guys love it too. And keep spreading the word. If there's anything I could ever ask from you guys, other than thanking you so much for watching and the best thing you could possibly do is tell your friends about it. Just keep spreading the word, and the more it gets out, the more, because it's all word of mouth, literally, that's podcasting from start to finish, word of mouth, from the recording process to you guys telling your friends, right? It's word of mouth, and it's powerful when we can collectively come together. And like I said, I want these conversations, I want what we talk about here to enter into the collective unconscious and push things in the right direction. Because, if it's two sides of a scale, and there's good and evil or whatever, or good and bad, or karma or whatever there is, the karmic scales, we want to be putting those beads on the side that's going to get us to the good. And we want balance, don't get me wrong, but again, the more, for every bead that goes in the bad, put 2 in the good. And maybe it'll all come out in the wash at the end of the day, because again, you need to have that balance and recognize the dark side. And maybe that has something to do with kind of what's going on too, is that we've all just, or at least personally, I've been in this mode where it's like, where I'm focusing and not trying to look at the pandemic and look at all this shit lockdown and all this stuff that's going on, and all that feeling of collective dread and collective worry and anxiety, and trying to just focus. Maybe you got to meet that head on. You got to look at the abyss and laugh and just take it on. And it's there, and it's part of you, and it's part of everyone, right? Like Stolochnitsin says, the line between good and evil runs down the heart of every man. Doesn't run between countries, it runs through the heart of every man. And I think I'm paraphrasing that, but again, that's to say that we all have the capabilities of. Sorry, that's more what Stolochnitsin was saying with that. But what I'm kind of saying is more, we have the idea that we want to be good, we want to do all these good things, we want to be pure, we want to be happy, do all this stuff. But again, the light does not exist without the dark. And I think Carl Jung is the first one to phrase it, the shadow, and people talk about shadow work and things like that, where essentially it is confronting those parts of the mind, or those parts of the soul and psyche that you don't always confront. And I think, myself included, we've all done this great job at compartmentalizing our lives. And, of course, as we do in this podcast, we can swing around to psychedelics, where psychedelics can show you parts of that where you may not have necessarily, you might not have gone down those corridors of the mind before. And, it's kind of interesting, thinking, like, that kind of potentially is where challenging trips, or where what people call bad trips, kind of come into, where it's like, you've all of a sudden been shown this part of yourself where you've gone so long without ever even confronting it that you might not even think that it's even part of you. And that's where people think, it's this old other entity that approached me, and it was all this stuff, right? Like, a lot of my trips, I've had interactions with my ego, and whether I've talked about it or not on the podcast, I've had times where I feel I've done psychedelics and my ego has been disintegrated, or whatever that means. I feel like I've separated from what we call the ego, and I've had a feeling where the ego comes back in almost with a vengeance, in the sense where they say that the ego is the greatest con man of all time, because it makes you think that it is actually you. It convinces you that it's your conscience. And we just get into life so much, and we forget that sometimes this conscious, this voice that we all have, that kind of a Jiminy Cricket, or whatever you want to call it, that speaks to us inside and leads us to do whatever we need to do. That can easily be confused with the ego, because again, the ego is that part of the psyche that is supposed to kind of guide us through this life. And the ego is what you think what you think other people think you are. And it's really, really difficult to ever validate that. I've mentioned this before, but it's really difficult to validate that. Even if you ask the other person whether they're even telling the truth, whether they can put it into words, whether you can even ask them the proper question, it's almost impossible to ever validate what you think they think of you. So, but we go around making many decisions in life based on the ego, and I think it's folly to pretend to dissolve the ego completely and try and be like, I don't have an ego and live life. And in the sense where I believe that it is part of this 3D reality, and it is potentially helping guide our spirit through this reality. And, you know, if the spirit isn't necessarily tethered to anything real, and, you know, depending on which religion or which dogma you tend to subscribe to, you know, the soul can be eternal, and, you know, it's kind of maybe even part of the mind where you feel that, you know, spiritual thoughts, and you don't necessarily think it's not necessarily logical, and you can kind of, you know, do that kind of thinking and that kind of like mindset. But you know, the ego is here to kind of keep that grounded a little bit more, and not, you know, in the clouds and spiritual euphoria and doing all that amazing stuff. And I think the ego can get overrun. It can get over cocky. I've had psychedelic experiences where I feel like, especially in a group setting, I feel my own ego come into the space and be like, hey, like, look at me, like, what's going on? You guys are like on drugs. What are you doing? And again, that could be easily perceived as some type of weird, subtle subconscious thought. But I truly believed, I perceived its energy coming in, and I was like, hey man, it's all good. You know, join the party. We love you. You love us. We love you. You know, we know you're only concerned about us because you love us. And, you know, have a seat. And it was almost like the ego was like, oh, cool. Like, finally I get a chance to not have to do this. But, you know, again, that's what the ego is built to do. So I get it. And, I think again, we've compartmentalized life so much where the ego just has been feeding off all this stuff, and, you know, fear and paranoia and worrying about people. Are you vaccinated? Are you this? Are you doing this and doing that? It's like, I totally understand how easily, you know, that side of our psyche and mind can get overinflated and start to overrun things, right? So, bottom line, it's time to do some psychedelics now. Now, of course, like I said, you know, responsible psychedelic use, you know, setting is important and all that stuff. And the last thing you want to do is be feeling bummed already and feeling like you're already worried about parts of your mind that you might not necessarily want to check into. Maybe a little meditation first, maybe a little walk down the path on your own, and then let psychedelics take you the rest of the way. But that's the thing, is that, you know, maybe this is a time to go talk to someone too. You know, there's so much great help out there. There's so much great resources for, you know, mental health out there, online resources now. And again, because that's what everyone's been seeing lately is that, you know, we could easily be staring down a serious mental health crisis right after this, right? Because people have lost jobs, lost savings, their homes, their livelihood, again, even just the social aspect on my life. And I'm, again, forever grateful for everything. I'm forever grateful for everything. And, you know, luckily I've been busy enough through the pandy wandy that, you know, at least I'm not pulling my hair out. But again, I feel for everyone listening that, you know, it's just weighing on you. And again, that light, there's a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, talking to a lot of restaurants and a lot of people I work with, you know, they don't have that hope yet. And I really hope that putting this out there, it's going to start to kind of make people feel a little bit more at ease and a little bit more optimistic, at least, about what potentially could be down the road. And, People are already talking about October being another thing. It's like, again, listen, we're going to have a lot of people double vaxxed by then. Let's go. And again, even people are talking about Delta variant, like, oh, great. What is that? A new bit? Like, here we go again. Like, will come at us with Lambda, Delta, Theta. Like, what is this? Friggin' Pledge Week or whatever the fuck they call it. Haha. Anyway, that was corny. I'm sorry. But again, I think everyone out there that's struggling right now, please keep your head on right, stick on the ice, rubber side down, just keep it pumping, man. And, if there's things in your life that maybe you've been putting aside, now's the time to start pumping it up. Don't think it's too late. Don't think it's something where you feel like you missed your chance or something like that. There's lots of times. There's lots of opportunity now. The sky's the limit. People are only going to get happier. Could be the start of the roaring 20s. It could be amazing. And, you just got to keep pumping. And, on that same vein, again, I'm hoping everyone out there staying safe, and I'm wearing my Red Lake Gold Corp shirt because my family up there in Red Lake, they're having to get evacuated because there's more forest fires going out there. So my heart goes out to you. You guys are in our thoughts and prayers. And, again, people, if we don't think that there's like serious things going on in the climate and that there's changes happening in the world, we got mad forest fires happening in Northern Ontario. Bad. And it's not like it's never happened before. And it was bad last year too. But this is the last thing these people need, and it's a beautiful part of our country, and it's sad to see, this happened to anybody on top of everything that's going on. So again, have everyone in your thoughts and prayers, and that's all we can really do from here. And hopefully they get after it with those forest firefighters, man. Like, those guys are heroes up there, and they're getting the water fucking dropped with the planes, and they're doing their thing. God bless everybody up in Red Lake. Love you guys. But again, once they get through that, you keep moving forward, and it's something that I wouldn't wish on anybody, and I wish I was there to help you guys. And once we get on the other side of this thing, everybody, we keep going, and all the trials and tribulations of life, we keep meeting them head on. And no matter what we do as a people, we got to come together, and again, keep putting the time in to put 2 marbles in the good and 1 marble in the dark, and work on every side of your personality. I know I am. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to do everything I can for you guys. The next step, I'm going to update on everybody and make sure I'm staying accountable to you guys and staying accountable to my goals. And again, if you wanted to support the podcast, check us out at patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Follow us on Twitter at @thebigmarkpod. Follow us on Instagram at @thebigmarkpodcast. Like and share and tell everyone, hit the bell and do all that fun stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, I love you guys. Thanks for all the comments and new subscribers. I love you guys, and thank you for watching. And we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Peace and love.